find putting the corset on very handy, because that suddenly makes you feel very different. And as soon as I put that on, I was like, oh yeah, Jamestown, I remember that. Pain, bone-crunching pain. It was such an interesting, prescient time to sort of go back and look at the beginning of America, particularly now that it's so politically tumultuous. With Donald Trump being voted in, it just feels like what an interesting time to go back and actually realise that it was quite a dark start to that sort of country's history. And I think, the British don't come out of it particularly favourably.
No.
And that's important.
With historical pieces, I always think, has anything actually ever changed? Because people, obviously things do advance, sometimes digress, but regress. We only get like 80 years of life, don't we? And the life cycle ends, and then it's passed on to you pass the information on to someone else. But does anything actually really change? What we were doing in Britain, we just took to America, and it was violent, it was horrible, and we just gave them a bit of it over there and started off that new world, effectively. So I don't know. I think every generation runs into the same issues and problems, and probably end up solving it in very similar ways. And this is about that, highlighting that struggle that everyone faces.
This argument that someone made that modern historical dramas represent women as being far too emboldened and empowered, and they weren't really like that in the day, and I think that's complete nonsense. But also, you're only ever going to perpetuate the sort of subjugation of women if you don't represent them as being fully rounded human beings with feelings, and they might not have a position of power, they might not have any rights, but they're still valid human beings, and I think so. Yeah, it can be a bit sort of distressing, but it's important to show in all our glory and all our shame how we've behaved as a society for hundreds of years.
Some people came out, I think even in some reviews, they sort of talked about why are we sort of changing history and how they would have reacted. And actually, when you go to history and look at the strong, amazing warrior women and leaders, and actually I just find it interesting that people would choose to go to that, say, oh well, they sort of didn't exist,
The majority of history is written by men, so it's kind of skewed in that direction anyway. If you could go in and focus on many of women's lives and the kind of, the strength that they needed to bear children, lots of children, look after families, get food on the table, all those things. That's kind of uncharted, really, all that stuff.
They exist,
And of course, in the new series, the slavery enters the mix. Are you hoping that kind of educates people as to, again, how we've ended up where we are today, and the history really as well of us and America?
Well, certainly, I think we hope that it opens up a discussion. That's all. Yeah. That's the first and most important thing you can hope for, that it gets people thinking about it. And again, what's clever about the structure of this show is that your protagonists aren't necessarily your heroes, and they are all confronted with their contribution to this morally corrupt situation. So these people that you've spent 8 episodes falling in love with, you suddenly have to go, oh, but they were the, instigators of slavery as a concept. So what does that mean? And how would I react? What would I do in that situation? And
I think I naively thought I had an idea of what slavery was, but after reading the scripts and speaking to Bill, it is amazing, how terrible it was,